welcome to everyone tuning in. Welcome to the episode 116 of Navigating Now. I'm Arushi Jain, Senior Consultant here at Thoughtium, and I will be your host for today's episode. We go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, and you can find all our episodes at thoughtium.com/live. With the sudden change of weather, we experienced last minute changes with our speakers, but we managed to bring in two very flexible and generous speakers, starting with Brian Helfman. And with him, we have Anika Moinuddin, for both of whom we are very grateful today. Brian is the co founder and CEO of Third Nature, earlier known as Startup Island, a personal growth platform for entrepreneurs. With 8 years of experience as an entrepreneur, experience designer, community builder, facilitator, and coach, his passion is in helping others discover and achieve their unique brand of success. Anika is a systems architect, coach, educator, and entrepreneur. She is the former CEO of Teach for Bangladesh, who has ever since helped open an alternate school in Egypt and is building an organizational coaching platform called Organism. Welcome, Brian, and welcome, Anika. You should know that our small but mighty team here at Thoughtium have very similar mindsets as both of you, and we're all building our life journeys in a truly conscious manner. So let's begin with Brian. Would love to hear your story of who you are, what has made you and your company, what they are today. And with that, I will pass on to Anika.
Thanks so much, Arushi. It's great to be here with you and with you, Anika. So you gave a nice intro there. I'll say again, I'm the founder and chief experience officer at Third Nature. And this story can be really long or really short. In the interest of the time that we have together, I'll keep it on the shorter side and just say that the big turning point for me in my life was actually a personal tragedy. So a little over 10 years ago, my dad passed away. And he was pretty young. He was 55. And he kind of instilled in me this idea that we should, work really hard so that we could enjoy life later, right? And it's not that he didn't enjoy his life while he was working, but I feel like he had this vision for himself, for his retirement, that he didn't really get to realize or experience firsthand. And so this was a big wake-up call for me, where I started to embrace the realization that life is short and I don't want to live today for tomorrow. I don't want to, spend 20 years, 10 years, even 1 year, or even a month living someone else's life or living the life that I think is, others are expecting me to live, in the hopes that maybe one day I can live the life that I truly want to live. I want to live that life now. And for what it's worth, I still think living the life you want to live now, it can, and for me does include working hard, and, financial abundance is part of that. And of course, there are moments when I'm planning for tomorrow and I'm setting myself up for a better future. And again, I think a lot of this comes back to balance, but that was the big wake-up call for me that took me from the corporate world, where I, was kind of lukewarm about my job. I honestly didn't hate my job in corporate America, but I knew it wasn't what I was put on this earth to do, or what I really wanted to do. And maybe more importantly, it just wasn't helping me lean into my strengths. And I was good at it, but I felt like there was another brand of work, or I could find work that was more aligned with who I am and how I want to spend my time and what I'm actually good at. And I can articulate all this now, but when my dad died 10 years ago, I was a mess. I mean, and I'm so grateful for what I did in that mess. I took some time off to travel. I actually took a job as a ski instructor in Colorado. That was incredibly transformative. Getting out of my comfort zone in a completely new environment, surrounded by completely new people. And I had a couple other very transformative travel experiences in those couple of years that enabled me to, I think, bring all of these things that I'm talking about together, because what Third Nature is all about is exactly that, bringing people out of their comfort zones through immersive travel experiences. Pre-COVID, we were mainly known for our alternative spring break program for college students. Back then, we were called Startup Island. Now we're Third Nature. Obviously, our business has changed a lot during the time of COVID. And now we're mainly focused on our adult summer camp weekends. But the mission is still the same. It's to create experiences in nature that empower people to be their true full selves, and then equipping them with the resources, tools, and community to design a life that's true to that true full self.
Nice. Really appreciate what you're doing. Anika, do you want to take it away?
Such a powerful story, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like my kind of inflection point has been happening this year. It's a not linear. There's been a seed that was planted like 3 years, and that's kind of been germinating, and then suddenly there've been intense kind of shifts in my life at this point. That's the beginning. I want to start with just explaining like what the seed was, or what organism, which is the platform and the methodology even that I'm building, where that comes from, and how my personal journey, right? So basically, I've been deep in the corporate world as a consultant in the belly of the beast of these in retail, in healthcare, in education, and navigating these organizations. My interest was, I think we're actually human centered. We use words and to say that we're people centered, but at the end of the day, we're not human centered. And then, what does it mean to be human centered? It's like, well, the challenges, we've come so far from our essence, where we've taken ourselves out of nature, built these artificial kind of homes, and put ourselves in things. We're not around other living matter. Separation has caused us a little bit to forget what it is like to be human, connect at a human level. All right, so over the many years, people lose their core essence as they come into work. They kind of have to leave that at the door, right? And these large organizations, without the magic of human essence and human connection. So the concept now is, how about shift that trajectory, right? And especially for purpose-driven organizations, there's a lot at this time, right? Like with climate coming in, with the many refugee crises, kind of all coming in. If purpose-driven companies can truly extract the essence of who people are and bring the fun into work, see organizations as this emergent phenomena, like what we see when groups of people come together and get excited about something and really do something, right? How methodologically, how can you make an organization go from like something externally to building out from each person and each team, emerging kind of the organization. So that's kind of overarching concept. And for myself, I'm doing it a little backwards. I don't know. Bangladesh. I spent 19 years there. Have a typical immigrant story. And starting this kind of brand new life, and going into corporate consulting, doing education. I'm very familiar at a similar point as Brian has shared, where it's time to do something maybe meaningful with our time. So I'm going to kind of pause there, and that's the little bit. It's all still coming together. So yeah.
Thank you both for sharing your stories. Both of you mentioned a lot about like purpose. So I want to start from that and really ask you, what does consciousness mean to both of you? And what are these small behaviors that we're seeing in individuals when we say people and companies are moving towards purpose-driven mindsets? So what is it that we're tangibly seeing that makes us conscious? Brian, do you want to start?
Sure. I think, to me, consciousness stems from awareness of self and awareness of like what's going on in your external world. So I get awareness of your internal and external world leads to consciousness. So if I can kind of dig a little deeper into that, I think so many of us go through life, and I think, even for me, we at Third Nature, we host conscious conversations every Friday. 12 p.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. We've been doing this for almost 3 years, and I go to almost every one of them. So consciousness is a big part of my life. And even for me still, like there are times when I'm not acting fully consciously. So this, it's not like, oh, you're conscious, you've woken up, you've made it, good job, you're done. No, it's a constant tuning back into awareness and learning from awareness and consciously choosing who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. So, but again, I think it starts with that thoughtful awareness, because so many people, again, myself included from time to time, kind of move through life from one experience to the next, not really taking the time to reflect and extract the learning, behaving in ways that they think others expect them to behave or that they're supposed to behave, and not taking the time to gain that level of self-awareness to better understand, how do I want to behave? Who do I want to be? And I think that taking that time to reflect and go inward and choose who you want to be is a big part of being a conscious being in the world. And we can apply that to the external as well. So again, a lot of people go through life just kind of thinking, oh, like everything going on out, like it's completely out of my control. Oh, there's this happening over here. There's this happening over here. How can I keep up with all this? It's so overwhelming. And yes, obviously there's a lot. The majority of our external world is out of our control, but what is within our control is how we digest, how we understand, how we think about it, the thoughts that we choose to focus on. And, I'm a big believer that what you focus on grows. So, if you focus on all the negativity and the pain and uncertainty and suffering that is inevitable in life, you'll see that everywhere. If you focus on the beauty and the joy and the gratitude that is also inherent in all life, you'll start to see that everywhere. And again, not to say that we shouldn't pay attention. Like, I think it is important to pay attention to the pain and suffering happening around the world, and having an attitude of gratitude, being able to, you know, consciously choose how you want to respond to that information that you're taking in, to the suffering that's happening in the world. That's what allows us to be conscious beings. So it's not ignoring anything that's happening in the world. It's just understanding that you have the power to choose how you want to respond.
Nice. That's a really good lesson going into 2023, I suppose. Anika, would you like to share something?
Sorry about that. Arusha, you've asked such a big question. Trying to, I'll, what's coming to mind for me, or what's coming up for me, I have this framework called the Maslow's pyramid of the higher. Like, if we think of ourselves as these human beings, we're like basically these high sense of awareness and intelligence, right? So there are these levels, you know, we at the basic level, we, you know, need food, shelter, we need some kind of work or occupation, like a sense of self. The final layer is kind of self-actualization. Is that kind of, I think that's truly where at the point where after or once these pieces come together, we have this opportunity to look around, put it really well, and choose who it is that we want to show up in the world, and that becomes our purpose. And that is the thing that sets another creature, where, you know, they feel love probably more than we do. They have a sense of instinct, and they move with nature and the world almost to a greater extent than we do. But what is reflect, kind of take themselves out of themselves, look at them like, is that really the person I want to, is that really the show up as you know, tomorrow? So business is that, yeah, like that singular ability to like step out of yourself, kind of also awareness, and it yeah, and right, it gives us an incredible level of power and response levels of it, and truly navigating it can be terrifying. And I just acknowledge, like, anyone who kind of sets on the journey, and it because it can take you so many wherever, because you're choosing to maybe do something, you know, usually like, you're not choosing to be someone else, you're choosing to be, there's no one else like you, right? So you kind of have to discover you and be terrifying, you know. So for me, like, consciousness wraps in these layers of, you know, kind of fear, power. Oh my gosh, you know, we actually have the power to choose. So yeah.
Thanks, Anika. You are cutting out just slightly, but we did hear the entire like sense of what you're trying to say. It's certainly powerful, I would say. So like, my next question for both of you is, because both of you have worked with individuals across the globe, what are some common challenges that you've seen for people to change behaviors, but also any positive behaviors that help people feed into community growth? So from personal to community growth, challenges as well as positive behaviors. Does anyone want to particularly start?
I'm happy to go first again. I just figured I would. Okay. I didn't want to jump in before you, Annika. But I would say one thing that maybe can get in the way is, this may sound like I feel like this is such a basic answer, but I'm just going to say it because I think it's relatable, but like over scheduling. I think when we're over scheduled, which is very common in today's world, and I think for my generation, for our generation, whether you're Gen Z, millennial, or I don't know, probably older generations as well these days, like we tend to, there are so many opportunities available to us now in the information age, and there's so many possibilities that we're constantly exposed to. So we want to say yes to everything, right? This is, at least for me, like I went through a period of my life, my professional life, where I was saying yes to everything. I felt like no opportunity was like, I was never too good for an opportunity. Like I couldn't pass anything up. I had to say yes to everything. And I guess there's like some FOMO, some fear of missing out that comes with that. But what ends up happening when we overschedule ourselves is we get overwhelmed and we move from one experience to the next without taking the time to step back and reflect and check in with ourselves. And it's funny, this conversation is coming right after our reflection workshop that me and my good friend Taylor from another community called Groove just facilitated. At Third Nature, we do a reflection workshop at the end of every quarter to give people that time and space to slow down, to extract the learning from the last 3 months and share with a group of supportive, conscious individuals. I do that every morning. Every morning I make time to reflect on the previous day. I journal on what happened. I call it a savoring exercise. It's like gratitude, but savoring is this concept that I learned from Laurie Santos's Science of Wellbeing course that she teaches at Yale, which is sometimes available to the public. I think it might even be available to the public right now. If listeners want to look into that, it's incredible. But she talks about this concept of savoring your experiences and extracting the gratitude in retrospect. And that's something I do every morning. And it's super powerful to, and again, like giving myself that time, make sure that I'm not just waking up and diving right into the workday. I think these days when a lot of us are working from home, and I've been working remotely myself for like 8 years. So I feel like I was better prepared for this remote work revolution that we've seen over the last few years, because I had been doing it for a while, and I never liked working from home. I like to work from a real office, but even when I am working from home, it's important to like give myself a commute, even if it's a fake commute, just like a walk around the block before going to my desk, as opposed to like going straight from the bed to the screen, and then at the end of the day from the screen to bed. So, and then another thing I'll say in terms of things people can do is play. So I'm actually reading this book right now. I don't have it in front of me, but the title is like Play, something about like the science of play and imagination and how it fuels the brain. And I mean, this book is incredible, and it's teaching me a lot of like what I innately knew, but like adding real science and research to it. And essentially the message is that adults don't play enough. And I think that's a big thing that we can learn from children. And I think tapping into our childlike enthusiasm for life as adults helps us be more conscious, helps us be more ourselves. Some ancient philosopher, I think it was Plato, said, you'll learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And I love that quote, because what it means is you'll also learn more about yourself through play than through conversation, right? So if we're not playing, how are we learning about ourselves? maybe we can, but it'll take a lot longer than if you just got out there and ran around more, played sports. And by the way, play doesn't have to mean like play in the traditional sense. It can be engaging in any sort of creative workshop, laughing, having fun, consuming playful art, creative art, you know, watching a funny movie, spending time with friends. There are a lot of adult-friendly ways that we can inject more play into our lives. And obviously, this is a big theme of our adult summer camp weekends. We go to children's summer camp properties and, you know, take over for a weekend and turn it into summer camp for adults. But we're in an environment that was built for children. And that's very intentional on our part, choosing those environments, because it immediately, when you arrive, it brings out your own childlike enthusiasm for life and for play. And again, it's a great precursor to developing a higher level of self-awareness.
I love that. We at Thoughtium, we really speak about creative confidence, creative freedom, and try and bring that to all our work. So appreciate you talking about how we can unleash the child within us. Anika, you work with children as well. Do you resonate with that?
Absolutely. And interestingly, when talking about children, I almost have to contradict what I said earlier. Right, reflecting, right? On like, oh, who do I want to be? Da, da, da. Their joy and pure instinct and curiosity and like this wide-eyed kind of view of the world. So there is a lot of that we absolutely learn and take from the children. And it'll probably kind of come away and shift away a little bit, but I think one of the things developing nations and kind of looked at, like, you know, in seeing the classrooms tendencies. So, and you asked about some of the challenges, right, in kind of get point of awareness, and really badly, like the traditional educational system, which we a lot of us grew up in, kind of perpetrates this model where the teacher has the knowledge, and then, you know, you fill up an empty jar, and you're filling them up with knowledge, and kind of that's the relationship. There's also like there's also a conformity expectation, right? That model has default in like most part of the world, and I if we're talking about the biggest challenge in us, both being these and also being the aware and reflecting adult, and, you know, kind of bringing it, I think the fact that we don't have an experience in our childhood has actually said, no, it should be the other way around. Is that it's really the opposite. You need permission, you need to conform, you need to feel guilty if you're disruptive. You know, that continues to be the challenge. I've seen, you know, in this sense, learn more from children, right? So designing these classrooms where we understand what are the strengths are bringing and facilitators are bringing, and what are the strengths that children are bringing, that the world's so dark, and, you know, in that kind of concept of play, and you're trying to kind of redesign that, and those initiatives are happening. They're part of this one time, okay, that good story, where in the school in Egypt, I was sitting, I was just observing the children, and we were promoting this idea of more free time, more free play, some structure, but a lot of freedom. And after school, like, started collecting these acorns and started building like a person acorns as he waited for like his parents to pick up, and his mom was at the main school, and children in and going like, okay, we're going to do, we've taken in children of the expats, we've community school and put them together and created like this new preschool. And even 3 weeks ago was so anxious, was like moving around, couldn't sit, just in this constant state of anxiety, was now like picking up, putting, creating shapes. And then this other girl comes in, she just grabs a tree branch with leaves and puts it on the head, like acorn man that he was creating, right? And in that moment, you see like what spontaneous creation is. It's just idle time where you're just being and creating. And it was just so beautiful to watch. So I think there are like challenges, but they're also very easily broken down when you can adjust. I think it comes back to the topic of your today, the biggest challenge, right? Mindset in what we think, what is possible, what is necessary.
Yeah, that's a great example of collaboration, and stories of children really light me up. So thank you for sharing that. We have, one final thing that we do. It's a little tradition when we end our conversations here at Navigating Now. It's a lightning round. Are you both game for it?
Can I just share one more quick thought that came up as Annika was talking?
Sure.
I think the working world that we live in now and that we've lived in for the last 150 years was built 150 years ago, right? We still are working in this industrial age world that was built to maximize productivity in a very specific sense. It was built for people to work 9 to 5 on an assembly line, or, contributing to a very specific output. And now we're living in the information age. There's been a new revolution, an information revolution, and the world of work is changing right before our eyes. And the companies that are able to adapt in a way that helps people be more creative, and Annika, I think that this is something that came up as you were talking, because I think this like 9 to 5 culture that's been the norm for the last 150 years, in a lot of ways it suppresses creativity because it's going from one thing to the next. It's like, that time is always occupied, and we don't have much choice or agency over how we're spending our time. But if companies want to be creative and innovative and also retain their people in, the century ahead, or even like the decade ahead or the year ahead, I think they would be best suited to prioritize giving their people, their teams, their employees that freedom to choose how they personally use their creativity to drive output for the company's bottom line, right? Like we're not throwing out the system. It's just an evolution that needs to happen. It's in the company's best interest. It's in the individual's best interest. It's in the management's best interest. It's in everyone's best interest. But, and a lot of companies have adapted and are doing awesome work in creating more, giving employees more flexibility, more freedom, to create their own schedules. And we have our goals, but like, if you're helping us achieve our goals and you're achieving your own goals, however you want to do it within, the time confines of your day and your week, that's great. Like, I think that mindset is what more employers could benefit from embracing. And you're starting to see it. And the companies that embrace that, I think, will be the companies that succeed in the years ahead.
I have to respond to that. I'm certain because it's work that I do.
Yeah.
And because as Brian, exactly as you do, like allow for the freedom, you have to be ready for that freedom comes out of that. Because suddenly your typical boxes of sales and marketing go up. You know, the titles and roles start blowing up, right? Like, so that's the worst. It doesn't always, but it can. You're saying that we're going to allow it. What is the balance of chaos and order that we're allowing, and how do we nurture that? How do we, like, gardening, you know, like give it the truth, then cut off weeds at the other. Anyway, so I just resonate a lot with that kind of open, and more organizations embracing that and helping their employees to name within the organization, so that they don't have to go out and market where it's really care for themselves. Right?
Yeah. And like you touched on earlier, for those of us, AKA most of us, the vast majority of us who grew up in the traditional education environment designed to prepare us for this outdated way of working, for the industrial factory way of working. I mean, they call it the factory model of education for a reason. It's hard. We weren't trained to be able to embrace and use that freedom in a way that's also productive and allows us to be creative and fulfilled. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about this for another hour. Arushi, I know you want to get to the lightning round, but yeah, I'm glad
Raina's back.
Yeah.
No, I'm enjoying this, and I think that we should probably end it at like this high note, because I totally resonate with everything you're talking about. I really appreciate once again for your time, for you guys to really jump in very last minute. If there's any closing thought that you have, happy to hear that. Okay, then I have just one question for you, which is, rank the 4 pillars of a good life, which includes health, wealth, love, and happiness.
Whoa.
This is a lightning round, so you can't take so much time to think.
Oh, okay. I mean, I wouldn't, I'm going to give you a cop-out answer. I wouldn't rank them. I would say, because I think they're all so interrelated and support each other. Health, wealth, happiness, and love. Were those the 4? After I spend more time thinking about this, I might have a different answer, but I would say, I think health is maybe like the foundational one. Whereas if you're mentally and physically healthy, I think it becomes a lot easier to achieve happiness, love, and what was the 4th one again?
Wealth.
And wealth. Oh yeah, wealth definitely. Like that's, yeah. But love too might be part of that foundation. Yeah.
Keep thinking about that, Brian. Anika, what's yours?
So mine is health first, then receiving love. So this is, I'll split love into 2. Health, receive, happiness, wealth, giving love. So it's giving love, and then probably wealth. By wealth, I don't mean minimum basic income. I think wealth is beyond. I assume for everything. For
Got it.
health and
Got it.
shelter, right? Yeah.
I love that you broke that into two. Really, really creative people we have right here. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Once again, we go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Tune in next week for another last interesting conversation for this year. I'm Arushi signing off. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
Thank you,
everyone.
Arjun.
Thank you, Arushi.